Okay. So it's been a couple weeks now, actually, that or no, maybe like a week and a half or so, that I took a break from making these videos. Um, Things got super busy with the VR project, which is called Kindred. It was this sort of story that we've been working on for the last 6 months, 9 months, with me and Kelly, sort of like putting our heads together and trying to piece all of that into a concept that we could actually share with a team and bring developers on, um, and make something out of it. So it was a long time coming, but the actual build for that took the last 3 months or so, basically late November. So when we really started cranking on it. And then the last month got pretty intense. So yeah, I basically, the last 2 weeks really became a nocturnal animal of sorts. Spent a lot of really late nights, early mornings, focused on just banging out the composition and working with the team on things, making sure that we were all on the same page, putting heads together with Kelly and others, to really just keep pushing things forward, and really see that through so that we could submit it. So we got that done, and now I've had about a week to take off from that, and just kind of reflect on things, and also just step back from it for a little bit. It's pretty damn intense. I think that's probably the most effort that I've ever put into uh, composing music for like a VR project or a game, or a short film or anything like that. So it definitely was like, in the best way possible. It was a bit of like a you know a drain on energy, but in that it was a deep sort of conduit for creative energy to be put into. And so now I've just gone through that phase of sort of output and creation, generating something from nothing, and now taking some healthy time to step back from that and just absorb a little bit, reflect, and figure out, start to feel out, like what's next, what I feel like actually focusing on next. Um, so been reflecting a bit on that sort of thing. One of the things I wanted to highlight about today, which especially over the past few weeks in that crunch time, when I was spending a ton of time inside on a computer, working on music or sound, or sitting on calls with the team, sitting in sort of like an open co-working thing on Discord, so that we were all in the same space together, virtually at least. Um, it really gave that kind of feel that we were working together, which was awesome. Like really, really great energy there, but also spent a lot of time trapped inside because of that. Um, so it just really brought me back to this idea of like how important it is to regularly be changing up space. Um, and it's something that I did before the pandemic a lot, when I was working remote, especially, but even when I had a consistent sort of office job, it was something that I did a lot. As someone who's grown up with ADHD, and still struggles with just being able to wrangle focus and state of mind, motivation, uh, dealing with being momentarily and spontaneously inspired on things, and then, if I'm not exactly in the right situation to grab that idea or thought and record it down right then, it's just gone. And having a hard time sort of harnessing that and controlling that when I want to bring those things up or when I want to work on something. Space change or sort of framing the state of mind that I want to be in so many ways is extremely helpful. It's been incredibly helpful to get myself to be able to focus on something when I want to, not just when the inspiration strikes. So I've been thinking about a few different ways that I tend to do that, just as a reminder to myself to like use those tools. I have tools there. These are things that have picked up over time that were really helpful in dealing with this with focus and distraction and procrastination. When I don't, even with medication, those things are still problems. They're still problematic. So a couple different things that I find absolutely essential. Actually, I can't function without doing these things, so it's just kind of become part of my life, at least. One is literally changing up space. So I need to focus and try to make something happen. I need to like sit down and write. I need to code and work on an app that I'm building at some point over the past few years. Or really try to just focus and study for a while on something. Or maybe I just want to read or, chill and actually step back from trying to be productive and do all those kinds of things. Changing my space, changing the headspace that I'm in often is most easily enacted by leaving the area that I'm in. So if that's the house here, the office at home, and actually going and finding a cafe, that's what I would have done prior to the pandemic. Now it got trickier, got a lot trickier because obviously lots of things aren't open. Going to an enclosed space to sit down where there's, presumably other people around, and dealing with the whole mask dynamic is just, it complicates things. So I've still been trying to find ways to do that. Sometimes that is going and taking walks. Sometimes that is literally just changing up the location, like the room that I'm in the house. And sometimes that would be like going to a park, taking a book with me or a laptop, that sort of thing. Or a long bike ride across town to another area, spend some time over there and then come back. And that act of changing locations and typically some physical activity thrown in there too, to just get the body moving and everything, makes it much easier to then have the goal of when I get there or when I get back, then, all right, now I'm ready to drop right into whatever focus, task or thing or whatever that I'm trying to do once I'm on the other side of that transition. So it's like you're creating like an in-between, a transition, like a liminal space through which to pass, a portal of sorts from your current headspace, which is presumably not conducive to what you're trying to do. Maybe you're just procrastinating, or you're depressed or whatever the hell it is, and then going through that portal of time, space, location, whatever, and coming out the other side. And it almost always for me enables me to like kind of loosen up my brain state, loosen up my headspace, and jump into what I was trying to do. Another thing that has often been really helpful is music. And this is more of a kind of personal preference. I feel like everybody's a little bit different on this, but I use music all the time to try to influence what kind of state of mind I want to be in. So it's almost like you think of it like using that music as a soundtrack. If your life in that particular moment was a film, a movie, a story, and at that point in time, this is like a focus montage, or maybe it is you going and spending a bunch of time doing like yoga in a park, or you're gonna do like a really intensive run or bike ride or something like that through town. It's like there is music, there is sound, there are themes that can be fit to each of those things. So over time, I've kind of found the ones that I like for each of those things, and I come back to that type of music to fit the situation. And it's like training your brain, like Pavlovian response. As soon as you hear that, your brain kind of learns that, oh, okay, this is like focus mode. I hear that kind of music. That means, this is usually what I listen to when I'm doing these kinds of things. And it makes it way easier to just reframe and transition into that sort of headspace. Another thing that I've actually found is really helpful. Scent is really powerful, and I feel like it's something that for a long time wasn't really talked about much. But just the visceral ability of smells to sort of transcend your headspace and evoke experiences or past memories and things. So like if you just imagine the idea of walking into or walking through like a pine forest, and you can smell that sort of almost minty kind of green vegetal scent of the pine sap and like cool breeze and all of that, like that has a visceral, refreshing sort of smell to it, and it brings with it a kind of mental space that you may have had if you've ever had that kind of experience, like walking through a forest like that. So that's a sort of tool that I would use to try to get into that kind of calm headspace. Maybe if the goal is to meditate and chill and focus on not doing anything, that is a tool that is often really helpful for me, particularly when my brain is super amped up and I'm trying to bring things down. A little bit of the deep breathing and maybe maybe even like incense or some sage or things like that are super helpful. Or just imagining that sort of sensory experience of like walking through a forest and bringing to mind the smells of that space. The last thing that I actually came up recently, and I hadn't thought about this for, I guess, explicitly in this way before, but it is using this concept of avatars to shape your frame of mind. And I think this is something that people like Dave Asprey have talked about in some of his books and others. And there's some neuroscience backing why this is really effective. And we do it all the time in situations where we interact with friends or family or teachers or your boss at work or whatever context. This idea of avatars being a different sort of character or filtered version of yourself that you play, that you put on, a mask that you wear in that particular context around that person or group. And so thinking of that as an avatar, each one of those, maybe you've got this particular friend group, there's an avatar that you wear, that you are in that context. And then you have a different avatar that you wear when you are at home with family visiting. So that's something we do without thinking about it, right? And I think this has come up in various contexts throughout my life, and I never thought about it explicitly this way, but it's something you can actually use to your advantage. So I was having a conversation with a friend about this recently, and one of the things that we were talking about was that you literally, I have used glasses in the past. I was going through a coding boot camp a couple years ago, and I got a pair of these sort of like blue and green light filtering glasses to help my eyes, because I was spending a lot of time staring at computer screens. And I started to realize that like every time I'd put these on, it would automatically start to make me sort of, it's like it would put me in this headspace of, okay, these are my focus glasses. As soon as I put these on my face, now I'm in like intense like coder mode. I'm gonna like hack on some shit for the next 6 hours. And I found that worked really well. And now I use it all the time for not just that context, but anytime I want to sit down and like focus and try to really pump something out, like writing or whatever. I use it for music a lot over the past few weeks as well. And so that has become a tool. It's like this actual object, this thing. It's like literally a mask of sorts that you put on your face, and then you feel different. So this idea of like avatars comes down to things like that, or it can be, you know, how people say dress for success. It's obviously become less popular in COVID because it's not comfortable to get, you know, all buttoned up and look as nice all the time, because it's just not as essential right now. Soft pants and all that. But I have found that on occasions where I am really just feeling lethargic and sort of just meh all over the place that particular day, intention, like realizing that that's the state of mind I'm in, and that that's not how I want to be for the rest of the day. I've gone over to the closet and decided, all right, I'm actually going to dress myself up a little bit more, as I would if maybe I was going to an interview or I was going to some sort of meetup to meet a bunch of people. And I want to, like, I don't know, I just want to like feel more competent and sort of, I just want to look nice. I don't know. You know, it's like a uniform of sorts, whatever the hell that is for you as an individual. For me, that's like wearing a button up of some sort and a vest over that, even if it's just jeans. It doesn't matter. It's like I put on that vest over some sort of button up and I just feel way more, I don't know, put together. And as soon as that happens and I can see myself wearing these things differently, I'm not in like sweats and a hoodie. It obviously, you know, I think everybody's been through this. It affects your mindset immediately because you see yourself differently. And so you kind of manifest a different state of mind just by the way that you see yourself in that state. So that's like, it's just this idea that you have different avatars that you can use in a circumstance. There are physical objects like clothes or glasses or, you know, like a hat or whatever the hell it is, that you can use to kind of attach a different mode. Or that idea of where like people will do the power pose in the mirror before an interview because they want to feel, they want to kind of like build themselves up a little bit. I think there's lots of situations like that where that sort of thing is really powerful. And this is something I'm going to be trying to do more consciously going forward, is going into situations where maybe, I don't know, I've got to go meet a bunch of new people and you know, start to make some connections. Maybe I'm traveling and I'm trying to make friends because I don't know anybody there. That's like a context where a tool that I should be able to pull out is, before I actually walk into this pub where I don't know anybody, let me just put on this sort of, you know, imaginary hat of Jay as a really social and outgoing person. And like, maybe that wasn't the state of mind I was in before, but I'm now going to take a moment and actually essentially put on this imaginary mask, and then be that version, try to cultivate that consciously before I walk into that situation. Because otherwise, what would happen, and what does happen all the time, is I'll find myself in that circumstance and I'm just like, I didn't, I really didn't, maybe I didn't want to be here in the first place, or I didn't really take any time to reflect on how I was feeling about the whole thing. And so I find myself there in conversations that I'm not really into, the motivation's not matching up, and I'm not really in a state of mind to succeed at whatever the hell I'm trying to do. So that is something I came across more recently, I think is going to be really valuable in all kinds of different endeavors going forward. Something I'm going to try to cultivate from past experience with like improv and using an accent in order to say, hey, you are now a different person because you're talking differently. And so it like opens you up to be able to act differently and kind of take down some of those guards and hesitations that you might have as your normal self. This is a tool I'm going to try to use going forward. So yeah, a lot of different things there, but all sort of around this idea of just trying to more intentionally be able to regulate my state of mind. Hopefully, some of these things might be helpful for you in whatever situations you find yourself. But I'm going to hop off here and go make dinner. So, see you all next time.